Hello, I'm Andy Cotgreave, Social Content Manager for Tableau. I work in the marketing department, and what I've discovered in this department is that we're on the road a lot, as I'm sure you might be quite often in your job. Now that shouldn't mean, and it doesn't mean for us in Tableau, that we can't access our data wherever we are. What I'm going to go through today is how we can answer questions of our data from wherever we are using our iPad. I'm going to go into Safari, and as you can see, I've already logged into Tableau server and have access to a whole bunch of workbooks. I want to show you how we can analyse data in this example about attendees at our customer conference in London in June 2013. I've got a workbook and one dashboard that I have permissions to see. What you can see in this dashboard is it's an analysis and display of where people come from, what job titles they are and what industry they have. And we can see we had over 400 attendees at the conference, and I can see that most of them came from Europe. Now, what's great is that I can drill into this dashboard and answer and explore data within the dashboard itself. So I'm going to use the filter to change to Europe. You'll notice that I've got a nice iPad mobile ready interface here. This dashboard will only be being published once, but the interface is appropriate for whichever device it's looked at, whether it's on a laptop, a PC or a tablet. And here you can see I've got all my European views. We can also look at job titles and do some ad hoc sort of development of the question, because it appears that most people gave us an unknown job title. Now that's probably not because they didn't know their job title. It probably shows that our entry forms were maybe too complicated or too annoying to use. So we need to go and fix that. But for now, I can click on the exclude tab tip just to get rid of those unknown job titles for now and see, well look, it looks like analysts and consultants are the most common job titles for all the attendees at customer conference. I can do the same interactions in different parts of the view. So for example, we could look and see which industries we have attendees from, and what you can see is that what's great is our customer conferences always get people from many different industries. So there I've answered questions that the person who authored this dashboard predicted that I would ask in the field, which is great. I can do that anywhere I am. But sometimes you have questions that aren't quite answered on these dashboards, and what do you do there? Well, traditionally we might have gone back to our office 2 weeks later to answer that question, or we might have disturbed somebody else and asked them to answer the question for us. Well, now with Tableau Server, I can just answer new questions right here in Safari. I'm going to click the edit button in the top left there, and what you'll see here is that we've brought the Tableau desktop authoring interface straight to the iPad and the browser, which means I can now answer more questions and develop things. So the first thing I'm going to do is change one sheet to sort of ask a more nuanced question than was originally thought of. Let's just filter the map down to Europe and think, well, instead of looking at the countries, maybe I want to see which city do most people come from. I might ask that quite legitimately. Maybe I want to think about where we're going to hold our customer conference next year in Europe. I drag city onto the details shelf, and the map updates very quickly, allowing me to answer that new question. Which cities did everybody come from? And we can see mostly London and then fairly uniformly distributed across Europe. So that's a question being answered from an existing worksheet. What if the worksheet doesn't even exist? What if it's a new question? For example, I want to know when people registered for the conference. I know that none of these worksheets answer that question, but that's okay, because the bottom right hand tab is a little new worksheet button which I press, and I've got a new blank canvas that allows me to ask new questions within this workbook. What we want to do is see, when did people register? So I'll take the number of records, drop that onto the row shelf. There's all 430 or 450 of them, and then drag the registered date onto the column shelf to give us a time series. Tableau is going to default to a year aggregation, but for this, it's just one quick click and choose continuous day. Now I can see when people registered. This is really interesting analysis from a marketing point of view, because I can see the spikes that are related to and the closure of early registration discounts. And I can also see interesting things such as this little peak. On the 4th of March we announced Hans Rosling was our keynote speaker. Clearly great keynote speakers encourage people to register for conference. So that's good help analytical information for us in future planning. So I'm looking here at registrations over time, and I can see those spikes. But in marketing, we do have targets. We need to get a certain number of people to buy tickets. Well, for that, I need a running total. Now, just think about that. A running total, how would you do that in different traditional BI tools? That could be a really complex question to answer. But we can do that even in our iPad. I'm going to drag the number of records, another copy of that, onto the row shelf. So we get a duplicate, but I want the lower one of these to be a running total. It's as easy as click quick table calculation, and choose one of these quick table calculations, running total, in order to get that previously complex analytical answer immediately on my iPad. As you can see, I can do lots of the rich formatting you can do in Tableau Desktop. And now I can see when the peaks were, but also when we hit particular thresholds for our conference. It's really powerful stuff from an existing workbook. But that's not all we can do. What if there is no workbook, but there is a data set that I want to ask questions of? For example, I'm going to do the final example will be looking at Tableau 8 roadshows. When we create a new version of Tableau or a new application, we like to take it out on the road and show it to you in person. Well, there's no workbook about that on my Tableau server, but there is a data source. This is the list of all the data sources that I have access to, and I happen to know that Alpo Campaigns contains the information about all the Tableau 8 roadshows. Now just think about this. Giving access to people to data sources on Tableau server wherever they are could be a bit risky. You know, the IT guys and the data governance people might be a bit nervous about sharing access to all the company data everywhere, and that's where security is very important, and I'll show that in this workbook. So I've clicked new workbook, and here you go. I've got a blank canvas on which to answer questions. Now all I'm going to do here is just drag out the city onto the row shelf, so we can see which cities we've had roadshows in, and I'm going to turn that into a map so we can see where they are. And that's all I'm going to do. You can see we've been to over 10 countries with the Tableau 8 roadshow. Now what's interesting here, if I go back to that security question, is that I know that this campaign data source contains information about roadshows across the world. And yet when all I did was drag and drop city, and I got the European cities. Because Tableau server's data engine and data sources are very, very secure. In this case, there's a data source filter on here so that myself as a social content manager, I only get access to the data in Europe. The folks in the US, they'd see the American roadshows if they did this same operation. The folks in Asia and APAC would also see just the data relevant for them. So what I've done here in this final analysis is ask a new question of a new data source. There wasn't even a workbook published answering these questions, and I've done it on my iPad securely and safely, and I could be anywhere in the world doing that. I hope that's been useful. What we've seen is that with just one finger, dragging and dropping and interacting with an iPad, it is entirely possible to ask questions of data, ask new questions of data, and explore things as never possible before. Thank you.